Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I want to get real for a second. We've reached a point in the industry where the barrier to entry is starting to look more and more like a brick wall for the average person. Over the last 90 days, the leaks surrounding the PlayStation 6 codename Orion and its standalone handheld companion codename Canis have shifted from exciting to a little concerning. Don't get me wrong, I love new tech. I love talking about it. Still exciting to me. But if the latest reports out of the supply chain are even half accurate, well, Sony is preparing for a future where the standard console will probably cost $1,000 and the companion handheld, the light version, the entry point, could cost as much as your current generation console. Well, since they raised the price of a PlayStation 5 to $600, we're talking about luxury editions anymore. We're talking about that's the baseline. But today we're going to dissect the January to April hardware leaks. We're looking at the AMD Zen 6 architecture, the RDNA 5 neural GPU, and most importantly, we're going to talk about the pricing suicide that Sony might be committing. Let's look at the numbers as we look at everything we know about the PlayStation 6 and the PlayStation 6 handheld leaks. The core of the PS6 is the Orion chipset. In February, the internal documents that leaked from AMD's design team in Austin, Texas, confirmed that the PlayStation 6 is skipping Zen 5 entirely and moving straight into Zen 6. This is a massive jump in logic processing. The goal is to solve the bottleneck issues that have plagued the PS5 era, where developers had to choose between high-density NPCs or high frame rates. Zen 6 promises a massive IPC, that's instructions per clock, uplift, meaning the console can think faster, manage more physics, and handle true next-gen AI without breaking a sweat. But that power will come with a cost. The silicon wafer prices at TSMC are skyrocketing. Between the 2nm processor node and the global scramble for AI chips, Sony is paying a premium just to get these chips printed. And this is where the $1,000 rumor originates from. The industry analysts are looking at the bill of materials for a Zen 6 RDNA 5 machine, realizing that to make a profit, Sony can't sell this thing at $499 anymore. Are we ready for a 4-digit console? At what point does a PlayStation stop being a gaming box and start becoming a niche luxury tech item for the top 1% of enthusiasts? While everybody else was playing a VHS, VCR at their house, imagine the 1% that went out and bought a laser disc. Because that's what we're looking at. On the graphics side, the leaks point to a custom RDNA 5 architecture. But it's not just about more teraflops. The leak from March describes something neural ray reconstruction. AMD is reportedly building dedicated AI hardware directly into the PS6 GPU. This isn't just a software trick like we saw with early FSR. This is a hardware level commitment to PSSR 3.0. The goal is to upscale to 8K at 60 frames per second or 4K at 120 frames per second as the standard, non-negotiable output. Sony wants to eliminate performance mode. They want the AI to upscale denoise and generate frames so cleanly that you can't tell the difference. You want to know if this stuff works? You look at the Switch 2 right now using similar technology where they're taking a 540p internal image and upscaling it to 1080p on the screen, and then when docked, up to 4K. Pretty impressive stuff, and obviously it can be done. But of course, there has to be a skeptical take. Do we need it? That's the question, right? We're still seeing games struggle to hit a stable 60 frames per second on $600 hardware now because optimization has gone out the window. If Sony gives the developers a $1,000 powerhouse, does that just give them an excuse to stop optimizing their game code? We're spending more money to fix the problem. Or are they going to push it to something that is so extreme that even those games won't be optimized? And then you're getting a 4K game running at 50 frames per second with like super high textures. It's like, okay, it's kind of killing the point. Now, let's talk about the other leak, because Sony seems to be taking a page out of Nintendo's book with the hybrid. That's right. Let's talk about the handheld. Project Canis. For months, we've heard rumors of a Portal 2 or a Vita 2. The leaks from the last 60 days have clarified exactly what this is. It's going to be a native handheld. This isn't a streaming device. It's meant to play, at the very least, your PS5 library locally. The specs leaked in late March suggest RDNA 3.5 or RDNA 4. It's essentially a Steam Deck on steroids. Better performance. Optimized specifically for the PlayStation ecosystem. But the rumored price, $599 US. Think about that. Sony wants you to pay more for a handheld than most people paid for the PlayStation 5 at launch. Now, of course, this is rumor. Take this all with a grain of salt, unless RAM prices just come down dramatically and, or Sony decides they want to take a huge hit on the consoles. But at $600, you are competing directly with the Steam Deck, the OLED model at least, the ROG Ally, which just dropped down to Amazon on Amazon for $500, I think, and of course the Switch 2, which is at $449. If this device doesn't have an open OS, if it's locked strictly to the PlayStation Store, it's going to be hard for Sony to justify that price tag. Unless it can seamlessly dock and provide a near PS5 experience or a PS5 experience on a TV. A PlayStation 5 $600 handheld that feels like a hybrid of a PS5, that's it's a hard pill to swallow, but I think a lot of people might pay that. It does still feel like a massive overreach in a market that is already getting crowded with PC handhelds. And the Switch, let's face it, Nintendo has owned the handheld market since the Game Boy, and nobody's even come close. I mean, nobody's even come close. One of the reasons for these insane prices is, of course, memory. The PlayStation 6 leaks have confirmed that they're moving to GDDR7. That's the cutting edge. It offers double the bandwidth of GDDR6, which is necessary to feed that Zen 6 beast, right? But GDDR7 is currently in extremely short supply because it's being diverted to AI data centers that we've been talking about on this channel for months. Sony is reportedly aiming for 24 gigabytes to 32 gigabytes of GDDR7. To put that in perspective, the memory alone could cost Sony $150 to $200 per unit. And if you think they're going to eat that, I got news for you. And then when you add a custom SSD, the massive cooling solution required for a 2nm chip, and the high-end power supply, yeah, that's $1,000. That price point for the console starts to look like cost rather than profit. They might be selling it at cost. Yeah. They might not make $1 on it, and they may even lose money after shipping and research and development costs. There is a leak out of Japan from early April suggesting that Sony is looking at a unified OS across the PlayStation 6 and the Canis handheld. And we've seen the screenshots out there. It's kind of sleek. This would mean a total overhaul of the PlayStation UI, something that feels more like a modern PC interface than a traditional console. The skepticism here is simple. Sony is becoming more like a closed PC manufacturer. And if they charge $1,000 for a box and $600 for a handheld, let's be real, guys, they are entering PC price territory. But on a PC, I can go to Steam, I can go to Epic Games, I can go to GOG or itch.io. I can get games for pennies on the dollar. On PlayStation, I'd be locked into Sony's pricing. I'm locked into their digital storefront, and if Sony wants to charge PC prices for hardware, they're going to have to provide PC level value, in my opinion. And as of right now, their walled garden approach is starting to feel more like a cage. The one bright spot in the last 90 days of leaks is the legacy layer. This to me sounds cool. Reports indicate that Sony is finally taking backwards compatibility seriously for the PlayStation 6 because they're sticking with AMD, which is good, right? The PS6 will then have hardware level PS5 Pro mode, but the real news is a rumored AI-driven PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 2 emulator that's using that neural hardware we talked about earlier. The PlayStation 6 could potentially upscale legacy titles in real time, adding HDR, improving frame rates, especially on those PS3 games, and cleaning up textures without developers needing to touch the code. If, and this is a big if, the PlayStation 6 can play every game from PS1 through PS5 with AI enhancements, does that justify the $1,000? Well, for a collector, maybe. But for the average person who just wants to play the latest Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto, $1,000 for a legacy machine is a tough sell. So there is that like nostalgia factor in it. Me as an old school gamer, that's kind of neat. We've seen this movie before. In 2006, Sony launched the PlayStation 3 at $599 US. Remember that, Ken Kutaragi? They were arrogant. They thought the PlayStation brand was so strong that people would work 2 jobs to afford it. Go back. He literally told you to go get a second job. And it took them years to recover from that mistake. Now, almost 20 years later, we're getting old, boys. They seem to be prepping to double down. A $1,000 PlayStation 6 and a $600 Canis handheld, let's call it the PS6 Lite, represents a $1,600 investment for the complete PlayStation experience next gen. The tech is incredible. Zen 6, RDNA 5, PSSR 3.0. It will undoubtedly produce the most beautiful game Sony has ever seen. But beautiful games don't matter if nobody can afford the box they run on. Go out and get the top of the line PC with a 5090 card. It's gorgeous. But can you afford it? Sony is betting that you'll pay whatever they ask because you're locked into their ecosystem. You are a Sony sexual. You love them no matter what. They're betting that the prestige hardware is the future. I'm not so sure. Console gaming is different. In a world where the economy is tightening up and a mid-range PC is becoming more accessible, Sony's $1,600 gamble looks less like a next-gen leap and more like a massive disconnect from reality. But I want to know, what's your limit? At what price do you walk away? Is it $700, $800, or is $1,000 the absolute end of the line for you? I'm ready to talk about it in the comments. This is Starflagmedia Gaming. Like, share, subscribe. Of course, as always, we will catch you in the next video. If you want to see the actual patent filings for that RDNA 5 chip, check out the video on the left and make sure to subscribe. We are tracking the supply chain daily.